Flash games. You know them? You've probably, most likely, played them. If you haven't, then you missed out on some of the best entertainment at the time. Strike Force Heroes, Kingdom Rush, Age of War, Realm of the Mad God, the original Isaac made in Flash. I can go on and on. After all, these games were my go-to before I had Steam, browsing various Flash game websites and later learning about the Flash player. They were some of my first memories of playing video games, alongside Plants vs. Zombies and, I don't know, Cut the Rope on the phone. Now these are not to be mixed with IO games, which also run in the web browser. These are still around in the same form, unlike Flash games. The Flash games I mentioned do still exist, only they've changed, since after Flash got discontinued and stopped getting supported, the big boys had to port over and get remade if they wanted to stick around. They did that. Taking Realm of the Mad God as an example, it's been remade from the ground up in the Unity engine, and now it's alive and well. What I'm getting at is that we have a good amount of these Flash games that we can still find on Steam or somewhere else, and I want to talk about a particular collection of these games, the Scriptwelder Collection. For the uninitiated, the Scriptwelder Collection, created by solo dev Scriptwelder, is a series of 3 games, 2 of which are trilogies themselves, so it's more like 7 games, but I'm going to cover the collection in 3 parts anyways. All the games in the collection are point-and-click games, but hear me out, it's a lot more interesting than it sounds, and they play around with some unique ideas that I think are pretty neat, so that's why I'm making this video. As for how I'm covering them, I'll be going through the games chronologically and in good detail, so if you don't want to get spoiled on most of the game's contents, you already know what to do. The Deep Sleep Trilogy was the first set of games Scriptwelder made, with the first game Deep Sleep coming out in 2012, and the 2 subsequent games releasing in 2013 and 2014. All 3 games are tied in with one another, and all follow the same character who is interested in lucid dreams. As the game's titles imply, they take place in these dreams, and you play from the protagonist's perspective as you explore the ever-changing dreamscape in an attempt to wake up. The first game is the shortest of the 3, and also the most straightforward. It starts with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, which fades to a simple room with a bed and some furniture. The door is locked, and looking around there are 2 items, a key, which doesn't fit the door, and a blue box. Rookie mistake. Obviously it's the box that tears reality apart whenever it's picked up. The quiet ticking of the clock is replaced by a droning ambience, and the clean interior walls flake away and darken. The locked door leading out of the bedroom has disappeared completely, letting you out into the adjacent hall, where you hear the ringing of a phone, coming from outside. There's this game called Yume Nikki, where you play as a girl who spends literally all her time sleeping and exploring some very vivid and convoluted dreams. On many occasions, you'll travel so far into this dream world, going down so many layers that you'll forget the path back, out to the beginning hub room, so you'll have to pinch your own cheek to wake up. Here you don't have that, so you continue exploring the building, now with an objective in mind. Returning to the hall and descending the stairs, you enter what looks to be a reception room of a hotel, with a hookboard for keys on the far wall alongside a call bell and a piece of paper on the table. This note, addressed to yourself from yourself, implies that this lucid dream didn't occur by chance, and was instead forced via something called the Inner Awakening. I don't exactly know how a note you wrote would make it into the dream, maybe you slipped it under your pillow before going to bed or something, but in any case, it's strange, and trust me, things will only get stranger. Also, you can ring the bell here, and then keep ringing it. And then ring it some more. Surely nothing bad will happen. Going further into the building requires a working flashlight, so you do some puzzling here and there. Turn off the furnace in the basement, dig around in the ashes, find batteries for the flashlight in the phone room, you know, your average point-and-click puzzle stuff. The flashlight ends up being not very powerful, only lighting up a small bit of the room where you aim it at, and as a result I was constantly scanning the darkness and getting freaked out. I don't like this, man. Fucking go. Okay. I love with the point and click game, especially if it's a horror one, you can tell if somebody actually got scared or not, or if that's a reaction or not, just by how much the fucking mouse shakes whenever they get. Oh my god. What is this? A golden statue? Taking a right here, you find a message on the wall that reads, "Little Cody is lost without his plushy tiger." And this is the first of many things that you'll want to remember for later. Going back and then left, you enter a hallway leading outside to a high-up staircase, with another doorway on the left wall that leads to a room covered in newspapers, some of which can be read. The headlines mention incidents of people who went to sleep and ended up falling into comas, or others who woke up acting differently, with relatives saying their personalities had changed. The theme of sleep and dreams continues to persist, but this information isn't much use on its own, and the final paper adds to the confusion. It's a threat directed at presumably the guy you play as, from an unknown person who I don't think we ever encounter. From here you do some more puzzles. You reach a code-locked door, the code for which is scrawled on the interior of the basement furnace, under a layer of soot. This one took me quite a while to find. Punch those numbers in and then crank that thing to get the door open, revealing yet another completely dark hallway, which appears to be occupied. Pickaxe. Oh my god. There's no going back in there anymore, but there's no need, as you now have the pickaxe to break through the cracked wall that was opposite of the bedroom back upstairs. That's kind of cool. Like 3 clicks and it breaks open. Doing so leads you outside proper, to a road along the shoreline leading to the lighthouse mentioned by the voice on the radio. Getting to the top, it's empty. There's no lens in the middle to refract the light like a lighthouse is supposed to, so now you have to find something to use as a replacement. Now you backtrack a little, using the net from the outside and the hook from the wall stairs to reach this window and get inside. Here you find a tape recorder playing a familiar message into a phone. Someone was here, they recorded this message and called you knowing you'd pick up, but now they're gone without a trace. They did leave a key hanging on the hook, and using it on the blue box from the beginning, you get a shiny gem to use at the lighthouse. Still, the dream doesn't end, so you start to go back down, where you run into more of those things. They block your path, forcing you back into the lighthouse, following you up the flights of stairs until you reach the top. And now, with nowhere left to run, you fight back. And then, just like that, I woke up. The nightmare was over, but my life has changed forever. Was it all just a dream, or were these creatures real? I have to know. I have to know the truth. I can't stop thinking about it. I have to go back. Back to the deep sleep. Guys, it's peak cinema. Come on, just admit it. It's peak. Guys, it's peak. It's peak. Anyways, like I said, the game is very straightforward. There's only one real ending, where you get to the lighthouse and use it to fend off the shadow creatures. If you end up getting caught by them either in the hallway or at the top of the lighthouse, you just get a game over, setting you back to the beginning. Still, the game leaves some questions unanswered, and the ending nicely sets up the sequel, which begins a short while after the first game. I've always wanted to experience a lucid dream. A dream in which you're awake. A dream in which you can be anyone and do anything. But something went wrong and ended up having a terrible nightmare. Before I woke up, I encountered monsters that wanted to hurt me. I don't think they were a part of my dream. It felt like they came from the outside, from the depths. The nightmare didn't fade away like I thought it would. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if it was real? I became obsessed with it. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to prove myself wrong? So I went to a local library to see if there were any past records of dreams similar to mine. After the brief intro, the second game opens up in the public library, sometime in the evening. It's a small place with only a few rooms of bookshelves which house a pretty limited selection of reading material, none of which is of any interest. Just like the first game, you appear to be awake at the start, but then you find a piece of paper lying on the table, and everything changes again. The eerie ambience kicks in as you survey your surroundings, finding a secret passage behind one of the bookshelves that leads to a gloomier room, with batteries on the table and another piece of paper on the empty shelf. In total, there are 15 of these little collectible paper bits throughout the game. Cuts up parts of a paragraph, something about dreaming. Further along, you enter a hallway with a few doors, a broken elevator, and a staircase leading down to... Wait, we've seen this place before. The reception room looks almost identical to the one from the first game. Key on the hook, call bell that invokes deja vu, all the same except for the extra passage leading to a room with a slightly concerning poster of a clown named Bert. Another change is that the stairs going further down don't lead to a furnace in the basement, but rather a lower floor of the building that connects to a sort of sewer-like passage where you actually encounter another person. Their face obscured in shadow behind the bars, they call out to you, in a way that implies you've met before. Asking them about it, they mention the recorded message playing into the phone, saying it was their doing. They also tell you that it won't be as easy to wake up this time, as they won't let you to the lighthouse again after you killed one of them, meaning you'll need to find a different way to get out of this world. Asking more questions, you learn that this dream world is shared. Many people, travelers, all reside in the same place, and can find and interact with one another, like the stranger did in Deep Sleep. Also, there's a third traveler around this place, a certain Felicity who is currently residing up in the building's attic. You're recommended against going there. Apparently she went insane due to spending too much time down here. Before leaving, you ask about a potential way to wake back up, and the stranger responds that since those things are after you now, your only choice is to go deeper. Doing this would be beneficial in two ways. You'd be able to hide from the creatures, and also potentially find a way to bounce off of the bottom of the dream world to reach the surface. It's nothing concrete, as the stranger hasn't been deeper than this, so you'd be on your own, but it's something, and it sure as hell beats sitting around and waiting for those shadows to come find you again. Now the goal is to get low, and I mean literally get as far down vertically as possible via the well you find once you get outside. While you work towards that, there's also a little side quest of sorts you can do. Once you explore a bit and find a specific key, you can unlock the door in the hallway, which leads to a small bedroom. Reading the nameplates on the bunk beds, one of them might stick out in particular. Cody, the same name seen in the first game in the dark room with the toy horse. That message also mentioned a plushy tiger, which you can find downstairs past the code-locked door. The tunnel here is still the same, dark and creepy, but the door that creature busted through in the other game is now open, leading to a small storage room. This place hasn't been used in a while, or probably ever, since there's not much of use here, just dusty junk and cobwebs, and the plushy tiger lying on the ground behind a large oval mirror. What did you say? Going back upstairs, you can place the plushie on Cody's bed, and while it seems like doing that didn't change anything, it does impact the game's ending in a positive way. To get to the ending, you continue exploring the outside, fixing the water flow to allow it to turn on the fountain and to get the water wheel to spin, supplying the building with electricity. Now with the power restored, you're able to call for the elevator and take it either down to the basement floor or go up to the second story. For whatever reason, the button leading to the ground floor is ripped out, although it's probably the case that there is no ground floor in the dream world, since architecture doesn't have to make sense here. Going down leads to the other side of that locked door in the basement, and there's also a container here that's screwed shut, embedded in the wall. Going the other way to the second floor, remember what the stranger told you, there's already somebody up here. See what we got. Oh. Well played. Oh shit. And now, I love the small touch of the protagonist being so startled that they fumble and drop the screwdriver while trying to get to the elevator controls. I mean, it's just perfect. It's perfect. Getting out alive, you got that screwdriver, which lets you access the panel in the downstairs, where you find a rope, which goes where? Well, the well, which instead of containing water empties out into a sort of underground catacombs area. Trying to climb back up, the shadow people have finally found you and are now blocking your way out, although, I mean, it's not like you're missing anything up there. Unless you did miss some of the small paper pieces. If you didn't, then you were able to complete the paragraph, and this is what it reads. I first encountered this phenomenon in the early 80s, but it would seem they have existed since the dawn of the human race. Commonly known as the Night Folk, or Shadow People, they live in the realm of dreams, but desperately want to get to our realm by possessing vulnerable, unoccupied bodies. As long as you don't know you are dreaming, you are safe. They attack when they sense a mind detached from its body, which sometimes happens during comas, but much more often during out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming. The game ends with what seems to be one of these night folk appearing in the darkness in front of you, before the screen fades to white. Additionally, if you did get the plushy tiger, a newspaper article is shown, written about a boy from an orphanage who woke up after a 3-month-long coma. Unfortunately, you don't have anything like a plush toy to help you out of this mess, so you keep going forward, sinking down to the deepest sleep. Again, the game seems to begin in the real world, with you lying in bed, unable to move as a shadowy shape lurks in front of you. At first you might think this is some sort of sleep paralysis demon, but at the same time, it looks a lot like those shadow people, and those, as we know, don't exist outside of dreams. This means that what you're seeing could actually be a dream within a dream, and when you wake up from this one, you'll find yourself right where you left off. It's the same dark and eerie underground, but now all your items from the previous game are gone, except for the flashlight, so you'll have to find more stuff to collect, starting with this green vase. Proceeding forward is a chamber that acts as the center of a crossroads, with the left path being a dead end where a note lies on the ground next to a reel leading into the ceiling. The name Bert came up in the previous game, on the poster of the clown who just grew a pair and walked away near the end. This means it's either the clown who wrote this note for himself, or another person who is coincidentally named Bert, trying to get out just like us. I'd assume the traveler mentioned in this note is you, mainly because this is the bottom depth and we haven't seen or heard of any other travelers that descended down here. The note also mentions these creatures called bottom feeders, and warns against going to some place called the Dark Church. And you gotta wonder how something can be dark enough to be called dark down here. Anyways, going back out and forward, you find a room with a detailed stone-carved face and an outline for a door along the left wall. For now, it doesn't seem to open, leaving the path to the right as the only way to progress. Here the corridor leads to a storage closet full of various supplies and a few handy items like a screwdriver and a hammer. There's also a book that goes into more details on the bottom feeders, predators of the deepest recesses of the dream world, blind hunters that navigate in the dark and detect prey via vibrations caused by motion. Just like the note said, staying still is key to surviving a run-in with them. Past the storage room, the hallway ends in a closed gate with a rope attached to it, leading off into the ceiling, and another stone statue with a gem in its mouth. Opening this door means cranking the reel, which you can't do yet, but you can pry out the gem, and then get a second one by smashing the vase. And now you have 2 eyes. This is that dark church from the note, and it really is dark. Darker than the already dark dreams you've been exploring this entire time. Here you engage in a simple game of locating the gems and sticking them into the appropriate holes to unlock the path forward, eventually reaching a pedestal with the coveted winch handle. Now you can crank the reel, and as a result get the gate open, allowing you further passage on your journey to... Honestly, at this point I have no idea where. Also, it appears this is where Bert's journey came to an end. I'm sad to say he didn't make it. But for the curious who wanted to know what a bottom feeder looks like, here you go. Yeah, not very appealing. The bar at the top of the screen indicates the bottom feeder's alertness. Moving around, moving your mouse, causes the grubby to inch closer, so you have to move slowly. But you can't move too slowly since you need to flip the lever to open this door and then reach the doorway before it closes. Finding the proper balance is a bit tricky, but doable, and you're able to escape the abomination into a room that reminds you that dreams don't need consistency. Remembering the note again, the last bit talked about a ladder capable of taking one to the surface, which is the whole reason why you descended this far down. Looking around, there's a valve and a shut trap door in the roof, which, spoiler alert, is where you need to go. Of course, the valve won't budge, but there are some indents in the far wall which make a 2x2 grid capable of fitting 4 tiles. Said tiles are found all over the place, and have lines carved into them which correspond to a drawing scrawled on a scrap of paper in the first room. Getting the 4 tiles isn't all that hard, just a few simple puzzles which are all very intuitive in my opinion, except for one. This intuitiveness is something I appreciate about all the games, since I had a lot of fun, especially with the later puzzles, thinking through all the potential solutions and deciding on how to go about solving a particular problem. You know it's good when most puzzles didn't require me to do any guesswork, and where I knew the use for most items when I picked them up. The one exception here was when I needed to grease a hatch to get it open, which required me to smash a mushroom and then use the oil that came out. Right after that, there was another puzzle that involved a bottom feeder that I needed to distract, and here the solution was a lot more obvious. Just smash the stack of plates to make a commotion, which allows you to grab one of the tiles. After getting all 4 and fitting them into the slots in the correct order, the valve releases, letting you pull the ladder down and barely escape before the bottom feeder corners you. The room you find yourself in is dark. A sewing machine sits in the far right corner, and a large oval mirror is propped against the wall, alongside an umbrella. If you paid extra attention in deeper sleep, this room appears familiar, and when you look in the mirror, everything starts to come together. Now I remember. They've got me. All this time I've been... one of them. If memory serves, outside this room is a door, and through it you can see the moving beam of a flashlight. The traveler on the other side begins to flee as soon as they spot you, in the exact same way you did in deep sleep. The only difference is that now you're the shadow, the pursuer, and you have the ability to catch them. Do that and you can take over their body and wake up, freeing yourself from this nightmare while stranding the other person down here. But would that be the right choice? If you do catch and abandon this poor soul, how would you be any different from the other shadow people? Wouldn't it be right to let them go, breaking the cycle, even if it means sacrificing yourself? The decision is yours to make. I hesitated, and I let that man go. This vicious cycle cannot continue. I will remain here forever. Here, in the deepest sleep. So what was this all about? Well, at first, in deep sleep, the person you played as was unfamiliar with the dream world, and after somehow managing to get in, you were able to get out thanks to the stranger's help. Then, you went right back in, and got stuck deeper down. Unable to use the same method to wake up, you were forced to travel deeper, and then right at the end of the game, you got caught and turned into a shadow person. In the third game, you were unaware of the transformation, and focused on escaping the deepest parts of the dream world until you looked in that mirror, which made you remember everything that happened and what you must do to wake up. Recalling the quote from the beginning of the first game, it actually describes the situation very well, how you changed, without even knowing it, becoming one of the very same creatures that you fought against at the start. Whereas the Deep Sleep Trilogy leans more towards horror, God fucking damn it, dude. The Don't Escape games put more emphasis on the puzzles. Like the titles might suggest, the main idea for this trilogy is a sort of reverse escape room, where instead of trying to find your way out, you do the opposite and try to keep yourself in. It'll make sense in a sec. Also, unlike the Deep Sleep Trilogy, these games don't share any story ties, so they can be played in any order. With that said, let's start with the first one. Don't Escape 1 puts you in the shoes of a werewolf, or a person who will turn into a werewolf when the full moon rises. The goal is simple: don't escape. Basically, trap yourself in the hut where the game starts so that you don't kill the people living in a nearby village when you do transform and lose control. The game plan: pick up anything and everything you can find. It'll either come in handy or will just take up a slot in your bottomless inventory. Also pay careful attention to your surroundings, since a few key items necessary for your success are hidden away. Besides that, it's a case of being thorough, taking your time to make sure you take every necessary precaution to stop yourself from escaping, locking and barricading the door and window, leaving poison bait for yourself, and tying yourself up with rope and chain. When you think you've done all you can, end the day, waiting until the moon rises to see the fruits of your labor. Depending on how much you impeded your own progress, you'll get one of three endings: either a total bloodbath, a frightful night, or a calm night. 2 bad endings and 1 good one. Pretty simple, not much else to say. The setting: a zombie apocalypse that started 2 weeks ago. You and your friend Bill found an abandoned building to rest in and prepare for an approaching zombie horde. The situation isn't great. Bill has been bitten, and you have only 8 hours to fully prepare for the undead mob. 8 hours. The first Don't Escape game is to me like a demo, a proof of concept that gets really fleshed out here with the addition of time as a resource, which you have to keep track of as you do various actions. For example, you're able to explore the areas surrounding the base, but traveling from one POI to the next takes time, so you can't just run back and forth forever. You'll have to plan your route to get as much as possible done at each location, optimizing as you go. The game does give you a lot of options and choices, and since you can't get everything done in one run, you'll be able to retry with prior knowledge, making better use of your time to hopefully survive to see the sunrise. The base itself is pretty bare bones and needs a lot of work, stuff like blocking the window or fixing the fence, for starters. Looking around, there are a few useful items that can help: a shovel for shoveling, bolt cutters to open the basement hatch, some wires, and a key for the front door. And then there's also Bill, slowly bleeding out on the floor next to a tub of gravel. Yeah, there's not much you can do for him, at least not until you go out and find more supplies. At first, the locations on the map are unmarked, so you'll have to go there to know what's what. Going clockwise from the top right, we have the gas station, church, car crash site, and a convenience store, which all take 10 minutes to reach from the main base positioned in the midst. Game plan part 2. Explore each location, note down things you might have to come back for, route your future attempts calculating total time costs, and list all the items you need to take from each location at each step. Now, I haven't actually done this, but I assume that would be the ideal way to play if you want to guarantee a flawless victory, making it through yourself, and maybe saving a few others along the way. These others include Jeremy at the convenience store and Father Bernard at the church. Both of them have to be recruited to the party by giving them items that convince them to help you, and both can contribute to fortifying the base, shaving off time from various laborious tasks. Now, it is possible to survive without their help, but them tagging along makes things easier for sure. Anyways, about the locations, all of them are such that you won't be able to clear them out in one visit, unless you first visit another location, so you'll have to backtrack to at least one of them, most likely more. For example, the gas station has a locked door which you can only break down with the axe from the church, or the car crash site, where you can siphon the gas from one of the cars if you have the gasoline canister and hose from the gas station. Now, me personally, I visit the church first, and then fully clear out the gas station. One thing to note here, a piece of info that will most definitely ring some bells later. If you mouse over the bookshelf, one particular set has an interesting description: Product Catalogs of Sidereal Plexus Incorporated. Remember that name, you'll be hearing it a lot later. Now, there are a couple defenses you can build at the base, like the fence, which you can then electrify by hooking it up to the generator. Or how about digging a large hole and filling it with wooden stakes to make it more effective? For this, you'll definitely need Jeremy and Bernard, and you can also get Bill to help if you give him the painkillers from the gas station, although he doesn't impact the time cuts as much, being injured and all that. As for self-defense, you have the axe and a gun from the crash site, bullets for which can be found all over the place. Additionally, if it comes to it, your buddies can take the fall for you, getting killed in your place, letting you escape while the zombies are distracted. If you're really messed up, you can also sacrifice one or both of them after digging the pit out front. It's a brutal move, but it's also really effective, distracting 45 zombies in total, being able to stave off most of the horde on its own. As I said before, the choice is yours. And about the achievements, there are a few more than the first game, coupled with a couple endings, one of which is the hardest to get in the entire trilogy. Surviving solo means not recruiting anyone and getting past the night. This also includes Bill, meaning you can't give him the painkillers. It's a tight squeeze in terms of timing, and I ended up surviving with a mere 15 minutes left over in the day. The way I did this was by fixing and electrifying the fence and breaking up the window. The front door gets locked and you hide down in the basement after using the axe to mercy kill Bill, so he doesn't turn when night falls. Unfortunately, you can't get around this, since the defenses and weapons you have are enough to take down exactly 50 zombies, leaving Bill unchecked. When done right, you'll survive, and as the sun rises over the horizon, you'll be able to leave, having lived another day. Don't Escape 3 takes everything from 2, puts it in a space setting, and adds more story. You can see how this is turning into something. Even just the first moments deliver. You wake up in a ship airlock, alarms blaring and red lights flashing all around as a timer counts down to, well, you can probably guess. Not wanting to get blasted out into space, your only choice is to abort the ejection procedure, which then allows you to unlock the door leading to the rest of the ship. Right outside the airlock door is a tablet, which becomes your main information tool, telling you the ship's status and storing logs which you can find around the ship to piece things together. The first one tells us that you and your crew stumbled upon a derelict, and acquired some strange glowing crystal from it that you plan to examine up close later. After that, something bad must have happened, since now the ship's life support is offline, there's 1 hour of oxygen left, and there may or may not be something or someone else on board. Also, notice something? Bottom left. Manufactured by Sidereal Plastis Incorporated. Now, first things first, you gotta get the life support back online because suffocating won't do anyone any good. Looking at the map of the ship on the tablet, the layout is pretty straightforward, with the large corridor going along most of the ship's length and with most rooms stemming off of it. The life support controls are at the very back, past the engine room, but going that way you run into a locked door which won't budge. Getting it open would require accessing the manual release behind a metal cover, Alien Isolation style. Going the other way to the bridge, you pass by a corpse on the ground, dead to blunt force trauma, and then another dead body, the captain on the bridge. Seeing as you're just a crewmate, you don't have very high level clearance. Can't really get much done here, but there are 2 logs to collect, and a fuse on the ground which goes into the fuse box back in the corridor. Logs 2 and 3 are messages from outside the spaceship. The first one was a mission debrief tasking your team with scanning an area where a company mining vessel went missing, which, thanks to Log 1, we now know somehow got destroyed. Log 3 is a transmission for this ship from the UEFS Warsaw, calling in after receiving your distress call. It's good to know that help is coming, but it's 2 days away, so you still have to survive until then, either on the ship if you can get the life support up and running, or in the escape pod if worst comes to worst. And now if you do get the life support back up, not only will you not die, you might also get to escape this ship. Wait. That fuse you picked up fixes the lights in the mess hall, or at least helps some. Here you have yet another dead body, stabbed and dripping blood all over the table and floor. Not very sanitary if you ask me, but we're beyond that now. From the mess hall, you can go to the bathroom and the bulk room, which is like the crew quarters, only it's locked and can't be brute forced. In the mess hall and bathroom, there are a few items to pick up, with the main one being the plasma torch fuel tank, which combined with the plasma torch found in the corridor is enough to open the door to the engine room. Before that, though, there's another room in the corridor that you can enter freely, a small lab with some sciencey equipment and a door on the left that is blocked by blue crystals. Of importance here are the chemical analyzer and mixer, alongside a note on the table that describes 2 chemical combinations to create a solvent and an explosive amplifying material. These will come into play later, but for now there is another log lying on the ground. This one continues from log 1, now being written by Dr. Amanda Grodberg as she analyzes the crystals you found at the shipwreck. Back to the door, cutting through it is easy work if you have a pair of protective glasses to not go blind. Getting through, you immediately run into another roadblock. The engine room is full of toxic vapor from one of the busted machines along the wall. Crew member number 4 can be found here, dead on the ground alongside an access card that unfortunately doesn't allow you to access the captain's logs. What it does give you access to is the spacesuit in the airlock and the escape pod, and now you have some options. Obviously, a spacesuit is airtight, so it'd serve well to pass through the toxic vapors, but you can also take it outside. The mining ship from the logs can be found nearby, and after harnessing yourself with a cable to not float away, you can inspect it up close to find a small piece of blue crystal. Alternatively, you can get through the engine room without the spacesuit by using the toolbox found in the escape pod to fix the fans. Now this takes 20 minutes, but actually I don't think this is even necessary since the spacesuit works just fine and doesn't take any time going there and back, so I don't see the need for using the toolbox anywhere actually. Anyways, point is, you get to the life support, main systems are down, but the auxiliary ones are only offline, and turning them on gives you 3 more hours. Not much, but you can work with it. Besides the life support, the terminal also controls the fire sprinklers all over the ship, and there's another station in the room dedicated to constructing various techie gadgets and upgrades for the tablet. For example, there's the processing unit, which helps cut down the time it takes for you to process security camera footage. Speaking of, at some point early on, the tablet syncs up with the spaceship's security camera system, giving you the option to download the recordings, but only in certain areas where action was detected. The recordings were corrupted, so it takes some time to decrypt them, figuring out how each person ended up dying at the hands of this spacesuit-wearing individual. Doing this also gives you the numbers for the code to access the bulk room/crew quarters, and I can't imagine how the passcode is connected with the camera footage, but, whatever works. 3 of the videos you can decrypt are for the bodies you've already found, excluding the captain on the bridge, so there's still that 4th recording needed for the last digit. This one comes from the barred room adjacent to the lab, but getting inside requires some work. Let's think through this. The door is being blocked by crystals. Removing them will let us get in, and we know about a chemical recipe to create a solvent that can dissolve those crystals. As for how do we get that mixture onto the crystals, which are in the other room? The fire sprinklers. Simple enough. Even with the solvent being sprinkled all over the room, the crystals remain, growing on the walls, floor, and ceiling. The one person in here, Amanda Grodberg, is dead, and her tablet lies on the ground nearby, containing log number 5. Turns out the crystals are like a parasitic organism spreading via acoustic vibrations, and this is a result of them being left uncontained. As the log states, the best course of action would be to destroy the crystals, preventing them from spreading further or getting picked up by another crew that would later stumble upon this ship. Lucky for you, there's a big batch of explosives in the nearby locker, and you can craft an igniter at the workshop station. Before getting on that and blowing up the spaceship, there is still some exploring and prep to do. Now you have all 4 digits of the code, so you can finally enter the bulk room where you find the bloody spacesuit. Suddenly you start coughing and spit out a small piece of blue crystal. Turns out at some point after you brought it on board, it ended up infecting your body and using it to kill the rest of the crew. How exactly it did this, I'm not too sure, but the fact of the matter is that you're infected, so if you end up boarding the rescue ship, there's a high likelihood of the crystal spreading further and causing more bloodshed. So now you don't want to escape. I guess it all adds up in the end. In this room, in the lockers, you can find the captain's access card, which lets you into the ship's systems proper to read the last log. This one looks like a text format of a recording between the captain and the lieutenant, who I'm assuming is you, the person responsible for all the deaths. The summary is that the crystal wreaked havoc all over the spaceship, leaving you as the only survivor, and now it's your job to get rid of it for good. Alternatively, you can just get into the escape pod and save yourself, dooming many others to a horrible fate. As always, the choice is yours. In total, there are 4 endings. The one I just mentioned, 2 where you blow up the horizon, either partially or fully, and 1 where... yeah. Okay. Whoops. Oh, that's me. Blowing up the ship requires those explosives from before, alongside the igniter and the explosion amplifying solution to severely damage the crystals on the ship, and the crystal pieces from the other shipwreck and from inside your body. The only difference between the 2 good endings is that in one you detonate the bomb right next to the ship's core, destroying the ship fully, while in the other only part of the ship, the lab and the isolation ward, are destroyed. In this case, the UEFS Warsaw is able to learn what happened through the same logs you collected, and the game ends with the pieces of your ship being taken to a sidereal plexus research facility called Sidereal Plexus 1. Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff. Up to this point, everything I've covered, all 6 games, can be considered the prelude for what's to come, the required reading, or the appetizer before the entree. Everything comes together in Don't Escape 4, Days to Survive, which is Scriptwelder's first full-sized game. It retains the same style and gameplay from the previous titles, while expanding on just about everything else. More puzzles, more story, more pixels on the screen. It's great, and as always, playing it for yourself is highly recommended. From the get-go, one important difference in this game is the presence of the character you play as on screen. The perspective is still the same, but the character now exists in these environments, and can more realistically interact with them, placing down items, moving around, and so on. Right off the bat, you're taught how to do most of these things, as the game starts off with an integrated tutorial. You find yourself in an unfamiliar room. The interior looks hazy, and there isn't any furniture around, only a locked door and a window beside it that you can try to open. Waking up from the nightmare, you see a sight that isn't much better than the dream. The moon, shattered, hangs over the sandy wasteland that is Earth. The campsite where you, David, rested is pretty bare bones. The campfire is out, and the tent is ragged and damaged. On you is an empty backpack for carrying various items you can find, and also a journal for keeping track of your progress, which David writes in after noticing the large cobwebs fluttering in the wind across the dunes. Now I'm of the opinion that no game is truly complete without a journal or some form of notes. So far, I'm 3 for 3 on that front, and it's hard to say if it's coincidence or not. The journal entry is dated November 21st, 1996, which establishes the beginning of our timeline, at least for events we will be a part of. Not a lot is disclosed here except for the fact that the world is dead and that the moon is getting bigger every day, which can only mean that it's getting closer to the Earth. That's not the only thing you need to worry about, though, since those spiderwebs in the dream seem to be somehow connected. The goal is clear. Find a shelter to stay the night and survive whatever is coming. Trekking to the right, you come upon a wall and an outhouse beside it. Here the game reviews all the basics from the other games, picking up and combining items, dealing with time costs, and also managing your inventory. Nothing groundbreaking, but still, concise and clear, and now you're properly ready to set out into the vast expanse, in search of a place to call home. After a bit of walking, you come across a paved road and a dirt path leading up to a not-so-small house on a hill, with a whole field behind it. It looks promising, but the doors are locked, so you need to find a way to get in before deciding if this is a suitable place to stay. The only other place to go is the barn, which is around the back and past the rickety greenhouse frame. In here there's a parked broken car, a generator hooked up to a fumigation device, and a metal pipe, perfect for safely breaking the already cracked window near the house's front door. The inside is mostly barren. Whoever lived here left a while ago, taking pretty much everything with them, so you don't have much to work with. The only thing of note is a broken hammer inside the blue storage chest and spare keys for the house and the kitchen. You'll have to go back out and explore to find all the necessary resources to fortify this place, just like in Don't Escape 2, and that sign back on the road is a good starting point. Also, you probably connected the dots by now. The living room is the same as the one from the dream, and that painting on the wall, well, that one's for the fans. Following the road in the direction the sign points, you come across a collapsed bridge. Not a big hindrance for now, but it does cost you a few extra minutes to get across, and that time penalty grows the more weight you're carrying. Eventually you can fix the bridge using some wooden boards from nearby, but you'll also need the right tools, like a fixed hammer, which can be gotten here, and also a lot of nails. Reaching the gas station, as expected, it's abandoned, most likely due to the giant spiders that have claimed the building for themselves. Inside you can see one up close, feeding on a corpse, too busy to notice you. Besides the spider, you can spot some really useful items like a crowbar, a gas tank, and a rifle on the ground. And all of these would be very nice to have, but you'd need to find a way to distract the spider first, luring it away somehow to actually loot the place properly. This bit is almost one-to-one with that part from Deepest Sleep, where you lure the bottom feeder by breaking a stack of plates. Luckily, such a set can be found in the adjacent room, and a small rock perfect for the job of being thrown is outside next to the parked fuel trailer. Now being able to take all the important stuff, we have a crowbar, rifle, gas canister, bag of charcoal, lighter, and some dollar bills, which actually aren't all that important anymore, with it being a post-apocalyptic setting and all that. Here when you pick up the charcoal, the game notes how not all items will come in handy, something to keep in mind in the future. You don't want to overthink things. Another important interaction here is with the magazine stand, as you can read one of the news articles which talks about the moon, and some interesting stuff is brought up. According to the article, the moon exploded on March 11th, 1996, the day before this publication and over half a year before this game takes place. Mass panic followed, and scientists from Sidereal Plexus attempted to calm the masses while denying their involvement in the event. Now we learn exactly what Sidereal Plexus is, a giant, highly technologically advanced corporation that seemed to have massive influence on Earth. I mean, it's 1996 and they had plans to set up mining operations on the moon, so they must be large. We also know from Don't Escape 3 that they had built and used spaceships for exploring further out into space, although there we don't have any dates, so we don't have a way of pinpointing the game's events on the timeline. It's a good thing that rifle was loaded when you found it, since the spider catches you off guard when you exit the building. And here I also wondered that maybe the crowbar could suffice, Half-Life style, but apparently the spider just stands there and waits for you to take your turn. And now with the spider gone for good, you can go back into the other room if you haven't looted it already. This is where the fortification materials are: metal bars, window mesh, and plastic wrap in sets of 3, perfect for covering the windows back at base. For the spiders, it makes sense that the metal bars would work the best, as you want something rigid and tough to keep them out. Only issue is they're very heavy, and you can only carry 30 kilos at a time, so you'll be doing at least one extra trip if you want to get all of them back to base. Testing out if the metal bars fit to the windows, there's still the question of holding them in place, and now, thanks to the crowbar, you can disassemble the greenhouse in the backyard, recycling the nails and rotten wooden boards. In total, you get 4 stacks, enough for each of the windows with some left over, perfect for partially rebuilding the bridge. With the windows barricaded and the doors locked with the key, you'd think this place is secured. But spoiler alert, this alone isn't enough, and there's still another unexplored location on the map. Heading over, just like the gas station, Spider's been here. There isn't a single survivor in sight, only corpses and broken down cars. Inspecting the bodies, one of them has a really clear, crisp spider bite mark, and another has a note, a debrief for a pest control team that was tasked with dealing with the spiders. Looks like it didn't go well. Good news for us, as a pest control team means pest controlling equipment, which can be found further down the road inside their parked van. This equipment includes a pair of bear traps, duct tape, and 4 cans of pesticide, all with different labels. The debrief note mentions scent repellents that should work on the spiders, and these seem to be that, but with the different labels there's only one that's actually effective against this specific subspecies. This is where the spider bite comes in handy, as a note in the last locker IDs the different spider types using their mandibles, so it's a simple case of fitting the shape in the right hole. Before leaving, don't forget to grab the pipe wrench lying on the ground. Also, if you took the time to check the condition of the car in the barn, you know that it's missing a working ignition coil, which can be produced from this car right here. That leaves the wheel from the car near the bridge, and also gasoline from the fuel trailer, both of which can be obtained thanks to the wrench. You'll also need more gasoline for the generator in order to power the irrigation system so that the pesticide can do its thing. Here the puzzle is a 1-to-1 of the one in Deeper Sleep, with a 2x2 grid of alternating lights, and now I actually have a method for it. Yeah, it's actually very simple. Here it is. So you start here, then you turn both of these off, while turning these 2 on. Now you turn this one on. So from this state, you want to have this whole T-section turned on, and this one turned off. So you turn this one on, so it turns on this whole T-section plus an additional. Now you turn off the whole T-section, and now you have exactly 7, which is this corner plus this T-section here. There we go. That's the solution. I think I figured it out, finally. So, let me run it back real quick. Boom, click here, then click here, then click here, then click here, and click here. So it's like 6 or 7 clicks, I think. Okay, I finally figured it out. It took me, playing through this game, for 7 hours, 8 hours, but I got it. I figured it out. Lastly, there's the 2 bear traps that simply go outside the house. Anywhere will work. I thought the placement matters, so I spent some time trying to finesse them right under the windows, but then when the results were tallied, the spiders hit them regardless of placement, so just don't worry about it too much. With all these base defenses set up, and armed with a weapon of your choice, you can wait until nightfall when the spiders reach the hideout. All the preparations you've made get counted here, and each of them helps thin the horde until hopefully all the spiders are either dead or repelled. If you did everything properly, the defense will be perfect, and David will be able to get a good night's rest, which gives him a permanent buff to his carry capacity. If the defense is suboptimal, on the other hand, David can get debuffed, or if you really didn't try, killed, so it's important to be thorough about it. Also worth noting, you'll probably end up having some time left over before nightfall at the end of the day, and here I'd recommend spending it if possible, like for example on building that bridge, since it takes a decent chunk of time that you might not have later. Anything you do carries over to the next day, so getting it done sooner can come back to benefit you later down the road. As if things weren't already going poorly, a helicopter flies straight into the house's attic, waking you up from another brutal nightmare. This time the dream involved a sudden snowstorm, cold enough to freeze you in seconds, so now you have that to worry about in addition to the intruder that's parked up above. Going to see who it is, you meet Kate, the lone pilot of the helicopter, who pulls her gun on you the moment you appear through the doorway. I mean, it makes sense. The world's gone to shit, so it's kinda like kill or be killed. No rules or anything like that. After exchanging a few words at gunpoint, she relaxes and actually asks you for help in locating an outpost that she says will help her to escape the planet. Again with the false advertising. Of course, it's a hard sell. The idea is outlandish, but at the same time, what do you have to lose? In any case, Kate tags along and is now part of your group. Just like David, she appears in the environment and you can interact with her, striking up one of many conversations about different topics and things. Asking her more directly about the outpost, she pretty bluntly replies that she doesn't know where it's located, and that until you find some clues pointing to its whereabouts, the name of the game is to survive. Don't escape. 4 days to survive. Of course, time isn't on your side, since according to her, the moon will collide with the Earth in 3 days, and until then, all you can really do is explore around and maybe find something remotely useful. She does mark a few points of interest on your map, buildings she flew over before crashing, so you at least have some new places to visit while you prepare for the night. Speaking of preparations, the defenses from the previous day are now all worn out. Any window barricades you set up got heavily damaged, letting you salvage only the nails. The generator in the barn is out of fuel again, and the bear traps you placed need to be cleaned and reset manually. At least you're still alive, and now have a companion who, just like in Don't Escape 2, can help save time doing all these chores. I decided to save cleaning the base for later, instead focusing on the 2 new locations, both of which are west of the base. Of the 2, I went to the restaurant first. My thought process was that a professional establishment probably has more useful stuff than someone's house, but in truth, the order that you visit these locations in doesn't matter. Going to the restaurant, you find Cody, a kid about 10 years old, alone, trying to get into the kitchen to find some food. Just like Kate, he's apprehensive of strangers, trying to put on a tough attitude, questioning you without letting you get close. It's obvious he's trying to hold it together. Something bad must have happened to him to end up like this without anyone else, but he doesn't back down, and attempting to get him to come with gets you nowhere. No food, no friendship. Time to get some food. The logical thing to do would be to find a different way into the kitchen. Usually restaurants have back doors and such for staff, which is the case here. The only problem is that this door is locked just like the front one, and a crowbar doesn't cut it. Looking around a bit, a plan formulates. Enter through the window above the door, reaching it with the help of the dumpster, and from there, find some food to give to Cody. For this, you need Kate's help, since apparently David is a flabby little man and can't push a dumpster on his own. Of course, Kate doesn't lose the chance to get her own jab in, but helps anyway, and you manage to get inside. In here, you can loot a few items like a big propane heater, some special heat-absorbing tiles, trademark of Sidereel, and a can of meat for Cody. Getting his trust with the food, you're able to convince him to tag along. Better for him to stick with you than be left alone in this place, especially considering what will happen at night. And now that he's coming with you, the restaurant's bathrooms become accessible. Or not. You'll have to revisit this place tomorrow, when the cold temperature does some work on these webs. Also, before leaving, outside on the ground in the lot, there's an interesting leaflet you can pick up and read. It's an advertisement made by Sidereal Plexus for a service they created called the Sleeper Clinic, which helps people's relatives who have fallen into comas. If you've been paying attention, this probably sounds familiar, as in deep sleep and deeper sleep, similar cases were mentioned, people falling into comas or waking up and acting strange. It's an interesting connection, but not everything is fully clear, so for now, just keep this in the back of your mind. Also, a pro tip for the speedrunners. There's the flagpole out back that you can interact with, and later on this day you'll need to get that rope and flag that's attached to it. To do this, you need that green pipe from the barn, so you can get that down now and save yourself the hassle of having to come back here. Moving on to the other location, the house, it's a pretty shabby place where you find its resident sitting outside next to the garage. Walking up and trying to talk to him, Barry, asks you to leave. His wife passed away during the night, and now he just wants to wait and waste away. Trying to persuade him gets you nowhere again, and here it isn't instantly obvious what you could do to get his spirits up. Trying to enter the house, Barry tells you to stay away. It's his property, and his wife's body is still in there. Of course he wouldn't want any strangers snooping around. Going back and talking to Kate, the option to distract Barry appears, and asking Kate to do that lets you slip past without him noticing. The inside is relatively clean, but time and the harsh weather have affected this place regardless, causing one of the rooms to collapse, leaving only the living room intact. In here there's some furniture and clothing, warm jackets, a blanket, even a broken heater, stuff that would come in handy if the temperature were to suddenly drop. The couch is positioned against the far wall, with a book lying on it and a painting hanging above, another familiar scene. The book's contents are also interesting, as they're about prophetic dreams, and how they can be more than just coincidence, instead being consistent phenomena that we just can't quite explain yet. Then in the center of the room is Barry's wife, with a locket around her neck that you can take. Inspecting it closer, it has a little compartment, and inside is a note, addressed to Barry, written by her before her passing, almost like she knew this would happen in advance, and this was her preparation for the aftermath. Now this is that little something that could help Barry, but at the same time, giving it to him would mean admitting you sneaked into his house and looted his wife's corpse. Still, there's nothing else you can do with it, so you go back outside and present him the locket. As expected, Barry is a little more than pissed, and the situation escalates until David's words finally reach him, getting him to back down and actually read the note. He apologizes and thanks you for taking the initiative, as otherwise he probably never would have seen his wife's last words to him. Now the final step is to properly honor Barry's wife, so you offer to dig a grave for her out behind the house, and with a shovel from Barry's garage, you get to work. With that, your job is done here, and Barry, feeling better, agrees to join. After all, his wife would have wanted him to live. Now you can talk to him just like you did with Kate and Cody, and he has a few interesting things to say. For one, if you fix the car in the barn and have used it, you can ask Barry about its abnormally high fuel consumption. He says that he can take a look at it if you get it into his garage, and this would require fully fixing up that bridge, and now with the whole squad assembled, doing that should be a breeze. Now this lets the car go pretty much anywhere, and after Barry fixes it up, it becomes a lot more fuel efficient, a good quality of life enhancement. You can also fill Barry in on the game plan, finding the outpost with the spaceship that would allow you to leave Earth before the moon collides with it. Understandably, he isn't fully convinced. I mean, who would be? But he's in the same boat as everyone else. Time is limited, and there isn't anything left here, so he might as well hope it's real. Also, another cool interaction with Barry becomes available when you travel back to base. He says he knew the people who lived here, although not very well, and you get a chance to ask him more about it. He thinks they must have left when the military was evacuating people, before everyone realized that there was nowhere safe to evacuate to. And besides the house, you can also ask him about all the other locations when you travel there, getting Barry to reminisce about the times before everything went wrong. You can also ask the same for Cody and Kate, and they give their 2 cents on each location, making a little joke here and there. It's a neat little addition to the game that makes the characters feel more alive and likable, and it helps add more substance to this world, as dead as it may be. With the sad stuff out of the way, it's time to get back into the high-octane action that point-and-click games are known for. Now, you've already started working on the prep for the cold weather, taking the warm clothes, blanket, and space heater from Barry's house, but there's still a lot more you can do. For one, you don't have enough jackets for everyone, but you can find more if you go back to the car jam up the road and follow a new set of tire tracks that leads to an RV. Its occupants are dead, so they won't be needing any of the stuff inside. Warm clothes, basic medical supplies, thermal blanket, water, stuff you'd bring on a road trip. Trying to start up the RV? No luck. Seems it's run out of fuel, and even if it was fuel, David concludes it wouldn't be able to go anywhere on account of the busted suspension. Back outside, you can also pull off the hook from the RV's back bumper. You'll be needing it shortly. Back at the base, the list of jobs to do is quite large. First things first, give each member of the group a warm coat, and then set up the fireplace, storing additional fuel in the basket nearby. Trying to light it now, David stops, noticing that the chimney is clogged and needs to be cleaned to avoid suffocating from the smoke. This is where the RV hook and flagpole rope come into play, as combining them lets you pull out the dead bird that somehow got stuck down there. Now onto the electrical heating components. There's the space heater, which needs fixing before it can be used safely. The screwdriver and extension cord from the attic are necessary here, and also don't forget to refuel the generator in the barn so that the house can get power. Then there's the big heater from the restaurant, which needs its own fuel, a propane tank from Barry's backyard. Lastly, the windows, which need to be covered to stop as much cold air from getting in as possible. This gets taken care of by the 2 blankets and restaurant flag, which can be nailed or duct taped in place. Also, the attic hatch needs 1 more blanket, since otherwise the hole left by the helicopter crash will be able to direct the cold air right in. With that, you're ready to face the cold. Although you don't face it at all, you just sit around inside, kept warm by all the heat sources and clothes. Another night, another good sleep. Another bad dream is to be expected. This time it's some sort of gang pulling up on the base with firearms. A pretty harsh challenge considering you'll be outnumbered and outgunned. For now though, that concern gets put on the back burner, as Kate also had a dream. One that showed her the location of a sidereal plexus office. It's a fortunate turn of events, considering that you didn't make any progress on pinpointing the outpost location yesterday, and Kate adamantly states that searching that lab for clues should come first, above worrying about what will happen tonight. She marks the location of the lab on your map, southwest of the base, past Barry's house in the city, or more accurately its ruins. Getting there, a car is recommended. Traveling on foot takes a long while, and you still don't know how much more travel you'll be doing, especially if you locate another new POI. Additionally, you can stop by the restaurant on the way, since now those spiderwebs should be gone, so you can loot the place fully. In here there's a bottle of oil, some rat poison, and a news magazine with another article on Sidereel talking about the sleeper clinics that were mentioned prior. The controversy here is that these clinics were used to test some kind of mind transfer technology, and the subjects for these tests were the clinic's patients. According to the article, this information came from a source within Sidereel, so it might not be entirely untrue. For all we know, Sidereel could have had such technology, and they could very well have been doing more shady stuff behind the scenes that nobody knows about. Getting to the city, it's sandy. So sandy that it's kind of absurd. The Sidereel Plexus building you're supposed to get into is partially buried, the front door completely inaccessible, forcing you to climb a dune that is high enough to bring you onto the building's roof. Here you're given a hard choice, to save either Cody or Barry from falling a good 4 stories down to the ground, basically guaranteeing their death. I chose Cody mainly because, like the game stated, it's what Barry would have wanted. Of course, Cody isn't all that happy you let Barry fall, but there isn't anything you can do about it now, and with Kate getting separated, it's down to the 2 of you to explore the building. As expected, the place is out of power. No lights, no working elevators, nothing. Going down the first flight of stairs from the top, there are 2 rooms, one locked and the other a normal-looking office. Here you find a person, dead, slumped over at a desk. Jacob Solomon, if we are to believe the ID tag found on his neck. On the back of the ID is a small key, which happens to fit the first door, and here you find a backup generator that luckily still works. Oh, okay, so basically what we need to do is we have 2 inputs, and we need this input to have 50 and this input to have 10. So we could do... Let me see, so we need 40... Or we need to keep it at 0. 40. Meaning this is a 20 pin, I think, so it's because it's 10. This cancels out 10, 10, 10. So this would be 80, 70. There you go, 50. And now we would need to do 10. 0, 10. Easy. So it's kind of simple. Easy. The generator only powers this one floor, but that's enough, since now you can check the working computer and also properly read the papers still sitting in the printer by the side. It's an evacuation notice that goes along with an email titled Escape. Apparently, when the evacuation was happening, 3 buses were prepared for Sidereal employees, 2 of which were decoys of sorts. Only bus C was actually planned to reach the launch pad. I guess this was done to avoid panic, tricking the less fortunate lower-level employees, keeping them calm until the higher-ups got safe. At that point, they didn't care what happened back on Earth. Checking the computer, there's the mail program and also an internet browser, which has the Sidereal Plexus website open, although the lack of internet stops it from loading. Perusing through the mail, the oldest one in the inbox is from March 1st of this year, about 10 days before the moon explosion. This one looks like a simple work email, which drops the names of a few Sidereal employees. Nothing too interesting, unlike this next email. This one was sent on March 5th, and has the title Visitors. The content is another sort of list, except a strange set of words is used. People visiting from World SP-4. Going through the list, there are 4 people mentioned. Sandra Vendera, who seems to be in a relatively high position, Jonathan Sampling, a scientist, and Samuel Garrod, security guard. The 4th person mentioned is Catherine Mayweather, pilot, associated with Sidereal Plexus. David makes the connection, and this becomes something to question Kate about after you reunite with her. The 3rd email, titled Hunt, is another work email, a bro asking his bro out to go hunting, except this bro is a party pooper who flags emails if they aren't work-related. What we get out of this is that new location I was foreshadowing, a lodge northeast of the main base. Email 4 is, it's pretty funny. It's a reply from Kate. Seems like this computer's user, Douglas, tried to ask her out on a date or something, and she just completely ratioed him. I mean, look at this. It sounds 1-to-1 like the Kate we know. Email 5, work stuff, nothing important, and then email 6, from our boy Jacob, is about that backup generator, which he configured to be able to power the lower floor instead of this one. This just requires puzzling the solution a little differently, the top pin needing 15 volts and the lower one needing 40. Nothing too complicated. Email 7, March 11th, the oopsie happened, and as we suspected, Sidereal most definitely had something to do with it. The next email is just a follow-up to 7, where Jacob asks about the threat and is quickly persuaded that, no, everything is fine, keep working. And now we can see how that turned out for him. As for Douglas, who sat here, he did get the email detailing the evacuation procedure titled Escape. It was sent a day later, and came with an attachment that disclosed the launch pad's location, southeast of the base, hidden in the mountains. Lastly, an unread email, sent after Douglas evacuated, coming from a Joshua Samar, journalist for Sunrise Telegram, who caught wind of the evacuation and figured out what Sidereal was responsible for. It's a threat that doesn't really concern the recipient at all, but if you think about it, that news probably ended up spreading, and then all the Sidereal employees that didn't make it out had to take the blame. It's quite the unfortunate situation. With that, the emails end, and with your job done, it's now time to find a way out. Going down another floor after rerouting the generator is an identical landing. The 2 doors are both locked, in a way. One has a heavy pipe leaning against it, which, with David being as weak as he is, can't be moved. The other door is locked from the inside, and the vent beside it is too small for David to fit through. Here, depending on who you saved, you can get one of these 2 doors opened, and since I saved Cody, he's able to squeeze through the vent and unlock the one on the right. In here there are 2 items, a document and a floppy disk labeled Face Control Light, that David notes feels very important. The document, a patient report, details observations made on a Nathan Harvez, who joined something called the Travelers Team and went through various tests involving sleep and dreams. The report also includes a documentation of an encounter the patient had with something while he was in a dream state. Sleep paralysis, the inability to wake up. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Going back, now it seems the only way down is through the elevator shaft, and using the fire hose on the wall nearby, you're able to safely descend to the first floor. Here, instead of offices, are labs, all of which are inaccessible. Most have been collapsed, and one, Lab 13, is locked. Going further, you reach the lobby, and find Barry lying on the floor. He isn't dead, yet, but the fall must have been painful, and still he makes jokes. He tells you to leave him. He can't move in this state and would drastically slow you down if you tried carrying him. Cody, distraught, pleads with Barry, but it's no use, and he succumbs to his wounds, promising to catch up with you all in another life. Take good care of him and Kate. I don't know where you're going, but I'll meet you in another life. Goodbye, Barry. Oh, come on, man! Like he was a goat, dude. He was good. Lab 11, Lab 12. The exit to the building is up ahead, just down the hall, and there you meet up with Kate, who loses no time in asking for the outpost location. David shows it to her, and then pitches the idea of booking it over right now, but Kate deems that too risky. What if the bandits from David's dream spot you on the road and follow you? You'll have to spend a third night at the base, which leaves you with only one day to get to the outpost, and, if there is a spaceship there, escape. The joke's getting old now. And now, Kate has some explaining to do. Saying her full name surprises her, and you get some info out of her, like the fact that she did work for Sidereal, even if briefly. This explains why she knew about the outpost and launch pad. She must have overheard people talking about it, but she never got the evacuation notice, because otherwise she wouldn't be here. Asking her why she didn't just spill the beans right off the bat, another sensible answer. People aren't too fond of Sidereal employees after what's happened to the moon, so associating with them isn't smart. Aside from that, she doesn't say much else, but it doesn't matter either way, since you have the outpost location, and at this point, sitting around and listening to backstories won't do much to help your situation. What will help is going over to the Hunter's Lodge that, as the name implies, contains various hunting equipment, which can double as self-defense gear. The place isn't very large, a simple 2 rooms with a small area out back containing an outhouse and a bear trap that hasn't been touched in a long time. Inside there's another bear trap in the smaller workroom alongside an unopened bottle of whiskey and a rifle scope on the shelf. The living room is a lot emptier, at first glance, but inspecting it more carefully you can find scratch marks near the sofa and see that one of the antlers on the deer head above the fireplace is skewed. Pulling on the antler with something long and then pushing the couch to the side reveals a floor safe containing the illegal items mentioned in the email, a revolver and 2 types of ammo. In total, you now have 4 bear traps, if you choose to clean the one outside, and 2 firearms with extra bullets. Kate already has a gun on her, and you'll be using the kitted-out rifle, so that leaves the revolver, which you can give to Cody. It's an iffy decision, giving a loaded gun to a kid, but he needs a way to defend himself if worst comes to worst, and you can give him a very basic training on how to handle it, although it'll take some time. Now, something you might be wondering, will the dream actually come true tonight? The last 2 dreams did, but you were able to see in advance that they had merit. On day 1, you saw the spider webs and encountered one of the spiders, and on day 2, there was a light snowfall during the day. Today, there hasn't been a single sighting of those bandits, or even any sign that they might be somewhere nearby, so what if it really is all just a dream? Wishful thinking is what it really is, because if you go to visit the gas station to refill on gasoline, you stumble into them, a few bandits chatting away while refueling their motorcycles. Sneaking into the building, you can eavesdrop on them, and what you hear isn't pretty. The 2 men talking, Sarge and another guy, are discussing the plan to raid your base after dark. The concern Sarge has is that the base makes for a good defensive position, but the purple guy, the gang leader, says that doesn't matter since he believes his gang of 20, with the help of Sarge's own men, can take it down no problem. It appears they've been keeping tabs on you for a little while, since they know that your group consisted of 2 guys, a gal, and a kid, which, against their numbers, isn't even a threat. Right before leaving, the leader name drops his gang's hideout location, a construction site that Kate says she might have seen from her helicopter. It's good news. You might be able to scope out just what you'll have to deal with, and if you're lucky, sabotage them in some way before the sun sets. Before getting on that, you can also confront Sarge, who stayed behind, in hopes of gaining more info on the gang. You approach him alone, while Kate and Cody stay in the building, with Kate getting in position to provide backup and to stop Sarge from blowing your brains out when he spots you. The talking goes quite well. You learn the gang leader's name is Razor, and that Sarge has 4 men in his squad, making up a part of the total of 20 bandits. As for why Sarge is working for Razor, despite not liking him, well, he kinda didn't have much of a choice after society collapsed and Razor provided them with food and shelter. Still, it is possible to persuade Sarge to back out of the raid, but you can only do that after helping him fill up on gas. After doing that, you need to choose the right things to say, since some dialogue options are dead ends. You can't just pity your way out of this one. Also, let's ignore the fact that It should come as no surprise that the construction site is guarded, which means it would be best if David went on the scouting trip alone. Less people, less attention, less chance of failure. The main entrance is a no-go since there's no cover, and the 2 guys standing out front would spot you well before you reach the fence, so you have to walk along the side, sneaking in through a literal crack in their defenses. It leads to a secluded part of their camp, the storage section where they're holding their ammo and food supplies, and here you can do a little bit of trolling. For starters, how about flooding their ammo with the oil you found back at the restaurant to make their weapons jam? And if you don't got the oil, then water will do as well. You can also steal some food, or sprinkle rat poison on it, although if you do this, then Sarge will go back on his word, since one of his men dies from it. I limited myself to messing up the ammo, and also leaving the whiskey here to tempt some of the bandits into getting so drunk they wouldn't be able to join in the fighting. Lastly, before going back, you can snipe the one guard you have to run past to get into the site, but that's only if you put a silencer on the rifle first, which I forgot to mention was found in the side rail office, on the floor next to the working computer. As for base defenses, it's mainly just the 4 bear traps, which you have to place outside the house, otherwise they won't work even if the bandits break in. I learned this the hard way when Cody got caught in the crossfire. It's what you'd call an unideal situation. Besides that, the storage area at the site had more of those metal bars, so you can barricade the first floor completely, locking the doors and reinforcing the one window. I also did some additional tinkering on the base, fastening window nets to the upper floor windows, thinking that would help. The idea was that they could be used for camouflage, like the window snipers from Half-Life or something, but I don't think they ended up working. Another night survived, another dream. You don't need to be a genius to figure out what will happen in this one. It's the last day, and the moon fills most of the sky now, so you'll either be gone or dead by night. After last night's scuffle, all the bandits are either gone or dead, with the exception of Razor, who you were able to knock out and restrain in the upstairs bathroom. Before leaving, you need to decide what to do with him. Either let Kate kill him, or let him go. Either way, he won't cause you any more trouble, so the choice is pretty insignificant. Now with all loose ends tied up, you can drive to the outpost, finding one of Sidereal's buses, Bus C, along the way, rusted and empty. Somehow the driver must have crashed it, and the employees had to walk the remaining distance on foot. Checking inside, there's only one small item on the back seat, a key with the label Lab 13. Now, as tempting as it might be to go back to the lab right away and see what's behind those doors, it's best to wait until later. You'll be going back there for a few reasons anyway. If the bus wasn't enough of an indicator that the emails were true, you come across a fenced perimeter with a bunker entrance and some large circular outlines in the dirt, those of silo hatches. Walking up to the entrance, there's a charred corpse lying on the side, a warning about what happens if you try to open the door without authorization. Now, Jacob Salmon's ID card works, which is strange since he wasn't on the list of employees who would be evacuating to the outpost on Bus C, but I shouldn't be complaining. Inside is a large engine with a transmission belt and an electric box wired up to the elevator and defense system, which you'd do well to rewire so that Kate and Cody could get in. Taking the elevator down, you reach the main part of the outpost, a hallway with a window at the end overlooking the spaceships, the goal you've been striving towards for the past couple days. There's also a couple rooms branching off the hallway, a lecture hall and 2 locked doors, one requiring a fingerprint and the other an ID card to scan. Jacob sadly doesn't have the necessary level of clearance for this one, so you have to look around for one that does. Hitting the light switch in the lecture hall, a projector display comes on, showing the trajectory of the rockets, starting from Earth, and landing on the moon. It's a startling bit of news, since it means the space outpost that Kate was talking about is located on the moon's surface, and if you forgot, will be plowing into the Earth in about 12 hours. David, understandably, is quite pissed, since Kate has been withholding this information the entire time, and now it looks like this escape you've been hoping for is just a death trap. With this big issue being brought up, Kate finally decides to explain her plan. She asks you how sidereal plexus is this technologically advanced, having set up mining expeditions on the moon and having created various high-tech gadgets in the year of 1996. The answer, as she puts it, is alternate worlds, in which other versions of sidereal plexus exist and have the ability to communicate and cooperate with each other. She says that the moon base you'll reach, called sidereal plexus 1 by the way, has advanced technology that can help you, although she doesn't go into details of how. No matter if you believe her or not, what she says makes sense if you remember the email which mentioned a different world called SP-4, from which a few people came to visit this one. One of them was a Sandra Vandera, and if you look around the room you'll find an ID tag which coincidentally has her name on it. In any case, you're still in the same position, not having much of a choice, so there's no harm in trying to reach the moon where the technology Kate is talking about might exist. Besides the very useful and important ID card, there's also a few notes lying on some of the desks in the room, one of which is a Q&A sheet that would have gone along with the presentation. The third question is the most interesting, concerning the end destination, which would be a world, different from this one and safe from the moon's collision. Reaching a parallel world in which sidereal didn't blow up the moon is ideal, and that seems to be exactly what they were working towards up in that base, so now the issue is more or less cleared up. The other note doesn't have anything to do with the lecture. It doesn't even have all that much writing on it, instead containing an illustration for a chemical composition of some sort of experimental lung efficiency medicine. It's not something that's useful right away, but it will be later once you do a closer inspection of the spaceship and its systems. Getting past the keycard door, you reach the inside of the silos, and here you have the control room and 2 launch pads, one of which is empty, meaning the sidereal employees made it here and flew the other ship to the moon. Of course, you don't need more than one ship, but you do need a working ship, and that means checking as many systems as possible to make sure things haven't broken down while the ship has been gathering dust here. I started with the control room, looking all over the machinery, finding something called a duplexer, and then checking all the screens. The central screen is the launch system diagnostics, a checklist for all the components that need to be calibrated or fixed before a safe launch is possible. The thing isn't working properly, so it only runs a partial diagnostics, recommending you do a manual check on the ship as well, something that should be done regardless. Going down the list, the tasks include opening the silo, inspecting the ship's hull, and adjusting the air composition. Additionally, due to having a partially full air supply, air-saving pills are recommended, and those can be created by following the chemical recipe note. Of course, you'll also need to find a lab with the proper equipment and appropriate materials, like for example, the lab back at the sidereal office, which you have a key for. The other screens are for the aforementioned systems, the air composition calibration and silo hatch control, which can only work if you didn't slip the transmission belt off the engine upstairs. The last screen is a radar, only it doesn't work because the radar dish above ground is broken and needs the duplexer to be fixed. Going to do that, and now the radar displays a pip, a decent ways away to the northeast. David seems confused, since there shouldn't be any aircraft in the sky for the radar to detect, but Kate comes up with the possibility that the radar is picking up on a signal on the ground, like for example a distress beacon. Whatever it is, it could be useful to check out, so Kate marks its approximate location on the map. Before going out to explore, it's best to finish up here, figuring out everything you need to find to fix the ship so that you don't waste time going back and forth bringing all the components separately. Getting into the ship to inspect it requires fixing up the elevator, for which you need the transmission belt from upstairs, and at this point you should have the silo open so there's no problem in repurposing it here. Inside, the checkup is pretty simple. If the light is green, it's good, and if it's red, there's something missing. In total, you need to install the lithium hydroxide filter and air tanks, and also fix the ship's hull. There's a sizable crack in the back wall that definitely shouldn't be there. What's funny is that I noticed the crack when I was playing for the first time, but ended up not knowing how to fix it up. I knew I had to weld it, and I even knew what to weld, but when it came to getting the welding kit from the now empty construction site, I was stumped. I need to climb the rusty scaffolding to reach it from above, but I couldn't do that without some sort of protection for the hands, and I completely missed the gloves that you need to pick up back at the base, left behind by one of the bandits. And for those curious, even with the crack going unchecked, you do make it to the moon, although not everyone makes it in one piece. Anyways, with the list of what you need completed, you can go back out and search for the necessary components. Starting with the radar blip, it's a crashed cargo plane belonging to Sidereal. Digging your way inside, there's a bunch of numbered boxes, and going to the cockpit, in the script, in the script I wrote down, a long pilot, long gone, definitely not a zombie, and he has a list of the cargo that was being transported. You're looking for box 7, by the way. That's where the air tanks are. Moving on, the next two locations are next to each other. The office and construction site, which I mentioned just a bit ago. With the bandits gone, you're free to explore all you want, and you can also find a news magazine and a wheelbarrow nearby, which further fuels the theory that Sidereal is connecting with other parallel worlds. At this point, it's not even a theory anymore. It's just true. Going to the office and unlocking the lab, it's as you would expect. Sciencey equipment and shelves full of various chemicals, perfect for concocting a lung-enhancing drug. Taking the necessary vials and slotting them into the mixer, you can notice the similarities to Don't Escape 3 with its own mixing system, which is very similar. All you need to do is choose the 3 chemicals that add up to the right amount of each of the 3 molecules, and then package the resulting solutions into the capsules for consumption. Also, don't forget to pass them out to the rest of the gang before liftoff, otherwise they'll be the ones doing the passing out. Lastly, the lithium hydroxide filter is stored behind the finger reader door, which you have 2 ways of opening. The first way involves copying the fingerprints you can find back at Bus C on one of the windows. To do this, you need the glue gun that's lying around in the spaceship, and also batteries to power it, found in the remote from the lecture room. As for the other method, it involves taking an actual finger of a Sidereal employee. The only one that isn't burnt or dried up is our late pal Jacob, and again, it puzzles me how he's in the system to unlock these doors, yet he didn't make it on the bus with the others to evacuate. Guess he just got seriously unlucky. Counting the results for the last day is a lot more straightforward, since you either fix each of the ship's systems or don't. There aren't any alternative solutions or less optimal ways of going about it, and if you didn't get a perfect result, then someone pays the price. If everything was checked and accounted for, then the trip to the moon goes relatively smoothly, and you land right when the oxygen levels get depleted, forcing you into the spacesuits. From here, it's a short walk to the main base, which is somehow still intact, even with the moon literally falling apart all around you. Getting inside, the place is quite small, with only 3 rooms: the entrance hall, control room, and a larger room full of what appears to be sleep pods, most of which are occupied. Kate explains that this is the way out, going to sleep in one of these pods and then having your consciousness transferred to a different world. This sounds just like that news article which talked about the sleeper clinic and the fact that it was being used by Sidereal to develop mind transfer technology. Now it turns out they've been right all along. Also, since it's just the mind being transferred, the pods are here to preserve the bodies in case somebody would want to go back to this world. Although, why would they? Asking about how they work, Kate mentions something called the Realm of Dreams, which is a place where every person's mind from every possible world can coexist, and it's what Sidereal uses to establish these connections between universes. And you've seen this realm before, since the Deep Sleep Trilogy takes place in it, although there you're just a lonely traveler, and you never saw anyone who uses this technology, probably because they don't stick around, instead instantly waking up in their new body. Or it's because the developer didn't think that far ahead, but come on, surely he did. Trying to access the sleep pod controls, the system is locked, and needs to be unlocked in the control room using the black keycard lying on the floor nearby. Going to do that, you see the view of the outside, and it's not good. Time is running out, and the Earth becomes visible, slowly creeping over the horizon. Unlocking the sleep pod controls, you can go back and check their status, and here as well the conditions are suboptimal. One of the systems, called the phase controller, isn't working, and its job would have been to target a specific body to receive your mind. Without it, you can't choose the destination, so best case, you end up in a random world in a random body, most likely your own, and worst case, you'll get stuck in the dream world, and then we'll have ourselves a Deep Sleep 4. Wait a minute. Kate also explains that as things are, your current memories won't get retained fully, and will become more distant, showing up from time to time as a déjà vu or a dream. This brings up the possibility that all this happened before, and those dreams you had are memories from previous worlds that you lived through. It's scary to think that this could be just another cycle in a loop of surviving and escaping just to be brought right back, but with no way to fix things, all you can do is ready the pods and prepare to go to sleep. That is, unless you held onto that floppy disk from the office, labeled Face Control Lite, containing a smaller, less robust version of the face control system that you can install into the Sleep Pod terminal. It's not a full fix, but it'll give you a better chance of locating a suitable body, hopefully ending up in a world where none of this happened. With that, there really is nothing else you can do, so after helping Cody and Kate into their pods, you go to get into yours. With impeccable timing, the moon's destruction finally reaches the base, damaging the power grid and stopping you from being able to use the sleep pod. Now, before the base completely falls apart, you have to reroute what remaining power there is to the last pod, so that it can stay on until David falls asleep and his mind gets transferred. And here I thought if you dilly-dally for too long, the base will fully collapse, but then the tense music started looping, and I realized it's the spider situation all over again. Making it back to the pod, you scramble in and close the lid, initiating the mind transfer procedure. At this point, anywhere would be better than getting stuck here, and so you wake up to a sight that is all too familiar. No. No. Nah. What a nightmare. It all felt so real. I feel there was something more in that dream. Something sad and important. Why do I feel like this already happened? You know, something is different. I'm gonna find out what. If this is where the game ended, then we'd have ourselves a problem, but that's not the case, since going back to the main menu, you can notice that one of the options is looking a little strange. Instead of starting a new game, you can now enter something called The Awakening, and you can guess what that entails. The game starts the same way, in the dream where David walks up to the window and gets assailed by spiders, only there are no spiders, and instead a swarm of locusts bursts through and bites David to death. Then he wakes up, in the exact same shoddy camp. Same dunes, same campfire, empty backpack. The only difference is the moving black cloud that replaced the cobwebs off in the distance. You see, the sleep pods worked. David's consciousness ended up transferring, and its destination was here, a world that's identical to the previous one, at least at first glance. In truth, there are differences, but they aren't very drastic. All the important stuff is still here, the locations, the people. It's just that now you have a whole new set of threats to overcome during each night. Now, I won't be going over them in detail like I did for the first 4 days, partly because of time, but also because I don't want to spoil the whole game for those who still want to play it for themselves afterwards. You see, the different threats for each day aren't set in stone, so you're almost guaranteed to face a different set of challenges in your new game run, some of which you'll be able to tackle with no prior knowledge. As for my playthrough, day 1 of The Awakening goes about the same as the first day of the new game. There are no other characters to find, and the locations you can access haven't changed. Still, you have knowledge of the first 4 days, so you can optimize, like you would in Don't Escape 2 or 3, managing time better and trying to get that perfect night result. Day 2, Kate crashes not her helicopter into not your roof, and then you have the same conversation, except David makes an interesting comment. Obviously, some moments from his, I guess you'd call it previous life, are present somewhere deep down in his memories. Just like before, Kate shows you the location of the restaurant and Barry's house, and you can convince both Barry and Cody to join you like last time. Talking to Cody, David says his name without Cody ever mentioning it, another little slip, old memories seeping in. Besides that, everything is the same in the restaurant, even down to the fact that the bathrooms are inaccessible, only this time because the locusts decided to build a nest here, but they too will be gone after this night. Same for Barry's place, the differences are minimal, just a few new items to pick up to help deal with the nighttime threat. Talking to Barry, David again gets this feeling like this isn't the first time they've met, but the feeling doesn't change anything and you still need to go through with giving Barry's wife a proper send-off before he joins you. The rest of the day is just base prep, same stuff as before, but then things get really interesting at the end of the night, when David has another dream. It's the same room as always with the door and window, but now there's also a staircase leading up to the second floor where you encounter someone you haven't talked with yet. Depending on who you save and who you let die on the third day, this dream and the awakening will be different, and since Barry died in my run, it's his wife who appears before David. This version of Maggie, Barry's memory of her present in the dream world, warns David about what will happen, and what did happen in the past, that Barry will die if he comes with you to the sidereal plexus office. Knowing that, you have the ability to save him, and Maggie tells you how. Simply make him wait outside while you go to explore the building. At this point, the conversation is cut short as a shadow person appears from the dark corner of the room, having detected David's lingering presence in the realm of dreams. Escaping it, you go through the same motions as before, walking up to the window and then waking up from the nightmare. Going to the office is no different than before. Same trap on the roof that Barry gets to avoid, same corpse in the office, and the same emails on the one working computer. The sticky note on the side is also the same. But wait, I haven't actually talked about the sticky note yet. If you paid attention, then you're probably asking what its purpose is. It has a username and password on it, but we haven't seen a single place where they can be punched in. You'd think you can use them somewhere on this computer, but the emails didn't need you to log in, and the website that was opened in the search engine wasn't loading because there's no internet. Now let me ask you a question. If you're watching this video, do you have internet? As crazy as it is, typing in siderealplexus.com in a search engine brings up a website, and inspecting it closer, it's the real deal. The whole thing is styled very simply, just like a website from the late 1990s, and the content is about Sidereal and their various technologies, some of which you've seen in-game. Additionally, there's a login button next to the product catalog, and using the username and password from the sticky note lets you access an employee-only section of the website, the internal newsfeed. The information here is all very spoiler-heavy, which is the reason why I waited until after finishing the first cycle of the game to talk about it. The 7 articles range from an analysis of the moon explosion to details regarding the shadow people, with the very bottom article having a recording of some kind, showing what appears to be a wall drawing with the shadow people and a human from, I guess, ancient times. There's also more references to the first 3 Don't Escape games, a report on the UEFS Horizon, and a list of some off-limit parallel worlds. These connections aren't as clear as the Horizon report, but I think Don't Escape 1 takes place in SP-17321, and Don't Escape 2 takes place in SP-82311, where the world got ravaged by a rage virus, which may very well have been the cause for all the zombies. As for information that's relevant to the current situation, there's that moon report, and also a top-secret document titled Synthesis Preparations, which reveals more truth behind the lunar explosion. Whatever this operation was that Sidereal was conducting, they didn't want the public knowing, so they used the helium-3 moon mining as a cover while they prepared. There's also mentions of some sort of crystals, which could be the same crystals as the ones from Don't Escape 3. After all, in that game you found them in the remains of a mining vessel, which could have been collecting them for use here. Whatever the case is, the takeaway is the same. Sidereal knew the dangers of doing these operations, and did them anyway, sacrificing tens of worlds for the sake of data and research, while everyone else had to suffer the consequences in their place. An additional bit of info about this can be found in the office building, the same office building where you're in, but it's in the room downstairs that you can't access unless you have Barry to help with moving the heavy metal pipe. Going in, the room is partially collapsed, and there's a floppy disk labeled MemBoost on the floor alongside a stack of papers sitting in the printer on the desk. It's a printed out email written by Jonathan Sampling, who we know as a scientist from the world SP-4. The contents of the email are concerning, just like the website document, mentioning a procedure, the crystals, and the consequences if shit hits the fan. Again, even knowing this, they planned on going through with it, because this is more important than the existence of one world. SP-2188 is expendable. The level of development leaves much to be desired. This SP-2188, as far as I can tell, is the identifier for the world you're currently in, since when I read the note in a different playthrough, the number changed. This just means the people from SP-4 were the ones to orchestrate the whole thing, using the resources of this underdeveloped world Sidereal to conduct a procedure to create more crystal, failing and blowing up the moon as a result. Funny thing, there's a small note in the Sidereal office lab written by one of the scientists who realized what would happen in advance, only they wouldn't have been able to do anything to stop the disaster. I bet the SP-4 scientists would have had their way regardless. Anyways, the rest of day 3 goes about the same, except now you have Barry to help with cutting time costs, and you should have both floppy disks from the office with you. Getting to day 4, the dream doesn't change. The moon is still falling, and you still need to make it to the outpost to fix the spaceship. Only now, instead of worrying about the air, you have to make sure the ship has enough fuel to make it to the moon. Yet again, the hull breach managed to evade me. Sorry about that one, Kate. This time you reach the moon with the whole gang still alive. Hopefully, and with both floppy disks in your pocket. One didn't cut it, but now with the memory boost installed to help carry over more memories, the chance of success should be higher. And there aren't any more slots for disks and programs, so you can't do anything else to better your chances. You'll just have to hope that those 2 disks are enough to save you from another cycle in the wasteland. Helping everyone else into their pods, and then getting into his own, after dealing with the slight inconvenience, David goes to sleep, and then he wakes up once again. The true ending wraps up everything pretty nice. David and all his friends finally find peace, and their lives return to normalcy, like it was before the moon came crashing down. It's interesting to think, though, that since we're dealing with parallel universes, there are still countless copies of David and Kate and Cody and Barry, and all the other characters that haven't found a way out. This happy ending only applies to the David we were following, and while there are definitely more Davids that were able to escape in a similar way, there must be others that haven't yet. I guess that's just how it is when you start talking about other worlds. Every possibility becomes a reality, somewhere, and we can't really do anything about it. But how about this? Each time you start a new game, that's a new, different world that you're seeing, since the combination of days is different, making it unique from the previous world and your previous playthrough. Additionally, after getting the true ending, you're able to handpick the threats you face each day. There's a new third threat on day 1, and there's an interesting interaction concerning the floppy disks. If you select the option of having collected both discs, and then get to the dream after the second night, both Maggie and Cody's tiger will appear in the bedroom, as if you let both Cody and Barry fall. They both talk about David's memories, reminding him that he's been through all this before, and warning him about the trap on the office roof before the shadow person, or as Maggie calls it, Nightfolk, appears. Getting caught here just resets you to the staircase, so you have to run away, but it's interesting that Scriptwelder decided to add this interaction, since you can only see it after getting the true ending and starting a new custom run. Also, before ending it off, I gotta mention a few of the cooler achievements for the game, like the one you get for playing the entire thing without a car, which I didn't even think was possible, what with all the moving around you have to do. Another achievement I found quite amusing was the one you get for bringing the dead bird with you on the spaceship. This one reminded me of the gnome achievement from Half-Life 2, although this one comes without the pain and misery. Real ones know. Lastly, the hardest one both physically and mentally, beating the game without companions, which requires you to make enough poor choices to get everyone besides David killed. In this case, Kate ends up writing you a note, which David reads once he reaches the moon base, and it does the job of explaining everything to him, only in less detail. The game ends the same way, with David falling asleep and reaching a world where the lunar explosion didn't happen, but sadly, he isn't able to share in the success with his friends, who now only exist in his faint memories. And now I'm pretty much done. Again, it's an amazing game with a great story, and I especially liked how Scriptwelder tied in his previous works, building a whole world, or many worlds, while making everything fit together. It makes playing through the other games first so much more rewarding, since then you're able to appreciate all the little nods and story moments that otherwise would fly over your head. At this point, it should be obvious, but I really recommend everyone who's still watching to go and check out Scriptwelder's other works, and also support his newest project, a fresh installment in the Deep Sleep series, which came out pretty recently. It's actually quite the coincidence. I planned on getting this video out sooner, but procrastination did its thing. Anyways, go support, go play, Have fun. Goodbye.